Okay, let's get started. It's 5 after. So we'll call to order. We have a quorum
Yes, we do.
and we did post.
Yes.
And any announcements of changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, we have some public comment right now. So we're going to start with Christina Lopez. Hi, Christina.
Good evening, Chair and board members. My name is Christina Lopez. I'm a Senior Public Affairs Specialist with South Coast AQMD. I'm here to provide just a really quick update from the press release that you received on rules, proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121. So South Coast AQMD announced a revised approach designed to address concerns from the public regarding consumer choice and potential economic impacts. The revised approach allows consumer choice of either gas or zero emission units. The updated concept and approach establishes manufacturer requirements for the sale of space, water heating appliances that meet low NOx and zero NOx emission standards. South Coast AQMD has scheduled a public consultation meeting to present and solicit information and suggestions from the public regarding the latest changes of the proposed rule amendments. The public consultation webinar is scheduled for Thursday, March 6th. Additional comments for the proposed rules can also be made at the Stationary Source Committee meeting on March 21st, April 18th, and at the public hearing of the governing board meeting on May 2nd. And then the other thing I'd like to announce is an invitation to attend our technology showcase that's being held Friday, March 7th. There's no registration and the hours are from 9:30 a.m. to noon. And this is a showcase that will feature zero emission, medium, heavy duty trucks, regular systems, school buses, law enforcement vehicles, and garden equipment, construction equipment, and more. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Next would be Mackenzie for A&T update.
All right, good evening, everyone. It has been basically a year since I first started coming to these meetings, and my first time I got thrown in the fire and had to do a whole presentation on the spot. So I don't want to have to do that this year. So I just want to provide you all with a quick update. On February 6th, there was a spot bill introduced by Assemblymember Tina McKenna. It's AB 470, and it's talking about mainly network transformation. Is pretty much similar to what happened last year, but because we had to do a gut and amend, and we did a little, first we started with the CPUC and then we had to do a gut and amend. It didn't give us a lot of time to get feedback from our communities and our cities, and so now we're taking time to meet with organizations and meet with coalitions to make sure that we get it right this time as we're trying to transition from our legacy technology of copper and move into building more fiber. So I have like a little principal fact sheet here. Happy to send it either digitally or I brought copies, but it just talks about the main points, which speaks to that no one is going to be left behind, that there is not identified alternatives, that we won't cut anybody off. This is a multi-year phased approach. And this is the same thing that we said last year. This is the first step of a multi-year process that goes with the FCC. And then the also thing is we will continue to be transparent and collaborative in this process. So just kind of want to give you that update. Happy to answer questions. You'll hear more and I'll share the fact sheet for the bill when it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our consent calendar. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look it over. Do I have a motion?
No move.
A motion, do I have a second? Second?
Can I just?
Yes, you may.
I looked around the room and we have about 5 people here who were not on the board a year ago, or even 6 months ago, or even 3 months ago. And I wanted to mention the monthly reports, just a second, because they're always on the consent calendar. The first monthly report is the council members a long time ago asked us to tell you who was attending our committee meetings. So when we have an economic development directors committee meeting or a GIS meeting, you're going to see by city, everybody who on your staff came to our meetings. If they didn't come at all, that's for you because you guys asked for it. The second report is client aid. We are one of the only councils of governments that actually gives out emergency same-day money to homeless people. We do it with very, very careful understanding of what the situation is and that there's no other way that we can keep these people off the streets. And you'll see our client aid report and you'll see that we've helped a lot of people get housed for less. It was less than $1,000. I didn't look at this one, which is pretty good for what's going on with homeless spending. The third is our media report, which is where we're getting out on our social media and our newsletters. And the fourth is a transportation report that we do every month, which has emerging issues in transportation, what's happening in the federal government, what's happening in the state government, metro, and it's just sort of news articles. And so these are things you can take and put under your pillow and read if you wake up in the middle of the night. But I just wanted to draw your attention to those.
Okay. Well, you know, while you're on this topic, before we go into this, you want to introduce our new members that have maybe not been here?
Well, do you want to introduce yourselves? David, you want to start?
Can I just finish the vote on the?
Oh,
Okay.
consent calendar and then we-
All right, let's go consent calendar.
So I've got a motion and a second. Any opposition? And any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, there's, you know who you are. Do you want to introduce yourself and?
Those that are new to us, just
Yeah.
introduce yourself. We appreciate it.
Sure. I'm Dave Bradley. I'm the mayor of Rancho Palos Verdes. But this is my first time on South Bay Cog. So I'm excited to be here and it's all good.
Thank you.
Lance Giroux, City of El Segundo, City Council Member.
Craig Quinn, Palos Verdes Estates, City Council Member, my second meeting.
Jesslyn Waldron with the Office of Supervisor Mitchell. You didn't make it this time. Last time got a little disoriented and ended up in San Bernardino County, so happy to be here.
Good.
And
Welcome, you guys.
I don't know if Raymond, you were here before, so I guess you're not delegate, but you were.
Right, it was the alternate here.
He's always here.
Yeah. he's-
Okay. Presentations. We do have a recognition, so I'll let you go, right?
No.
You don't want to do it?
Well, okay.
So we have a recognition for Harold Williams, who is a former West Basin Municipal Water District member. And we want to recognize him for his service. And we have a small gift.
Yes, and he could not be with us this evening, but Gus Mesa from West Basin is here, and maybe you could say a couple words about Harold and.
Couple words. Good evening, Chairman Tanaka and members of the board. I'm Gus Mason with West Basin Municipal Water District. And I want to thank you all for recognizing and providing our director who just retired, Harold Williams. I think many of you know him and have worked with him. And he couldn't be here tonight, but I know he appreciates us very much. And he represents the cities of the Palos Verdes Peninsula, as the city of Carson. And so he really supported the South Bay COG, this partnership that West Basin has with the COG. He really supported that very much. I enjoyed working with him very much. And so, yeah, we really appreciate you providing this certificate, and we'll make sure that our director, not our director anymore, but we'll make sure that Harold Williams receives this certificate. So thank you very much.
Want to read it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so this is a certificate of appreciation presented to, for Harold Williams. In recognition for your service as a member of the Board of Directors of West Basin Municipal Water District from November 2014 to December 2024. The South Bay City's Council of Governments recognizes your outstanding public service, your commitment and dedication to our community as a member of the West Basin Municipal Water District, as well as serving on the Carson City Council. I remember that. Has benefited the whole South Bay. We honor your work to ensure healthy and reliable water for the South Bay. Have that certificate, and then we also have a pin set that,
Not everybody gets one of those.
We'll make sure he
Thank you.
gets this, yeah.
Can we get a picture?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This way. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
She tried to make me taller.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The last night, yesterday, the board voted on a replacement for Harold Williams. I don't know. If you heard. So,
Yes, there was a total of 8 candidates that applied for the director position. And then it was 4, down to 4. And then on Wednesday night, the directors voted for Tommy Fave. Some of you, I don't know if some of you know the name, Tommy Fave, but he is a resident of Carson. And so he's going to be representing Division 1, which I mentioned are the cities on the PV Peninsula and Carson. So we're very excited to have Tommy Fave as our new director.
and his day job is IBEW local union, right?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Great.
I know
Yes,
them very well.
he's a business development manager, right, for the local union, yes.
Oh, good.
Thank you. So we'll have him come and you can make it.
Thank you all very much.
So congratulations.
Okay.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Gus.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, the next item is, there's a lot going on in the county right now with Measure A. That's the homeless initiative that we just passed, that's going to replace Measure H. And we wanted to talk to you about what's happening now, which is sort of divvying up the work program, the funding, the plans for the future. And so it's a really critical time that you all know what's going on and that we weigh in. We're very fortunate to have selected a representative that is very active on the board, that will make a lot of these decisions, Paige Kalarudovic. And she's here this evening to talk to you about what's going on and get your feedback. So this is to get your feedback, so speak up, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna kind of breeze through this so that we have time for your feedback. Again, my name is Paige Kalajetovich. I'm Mayor Pro Tem in Redondo Beach. I sit on the ECRA committee that is making recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on how Measure A is going to be carried out. So we'll go through this, and I might step closer to this because I don't think that my eyes are good enough. So we can go to the next slide. Just top line goals. So we, in Measure A, there was a timeline built into it. We have to approve, or the Board of Supervisors have to approve the baseline metrics, goals, and the budget by April 1st. So that's a tight turnaround. And this is kind of what has been presented. So I'll just, again, go through it, make some comments, and then I want to get some feedback from all of you so that I can bring that back to the board. Okay, so 30% reduction in unsheltered homelessness, 150% increase in housing placements. You can imagine that that's going to require that we build a lot more. La Casa is going to stand that up. A reduction in inflow into homelessness of 20%. Again, this is the top line goals, then they go into some more specific ones. Next slide, please. So the first goal of increasing the number of people moving from encampments into permanent housing to reduce unsheltered homelessness. So again, I'll just read through these. Reduce the number of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness by 30%. Increase the number of people moving into permanent housing from unsheltered settings by 80%, ambitious. Increase the rate of people moving into interim housing from unsheltered settings by 32%. I just want to make a comment. I mentioned that this is going to depend on building a lot more affordable housing, but also maintaining federal funding. This isn't just Measure A dollars. They're trying to collaborate and combine funds, but again, dependent on federal dollars. So we'll see how that all plays out. And also important note that they admitted that we do need to track new data tools to track these outcomes. We need new data tools, and I'm happy to see that they put that in there, but we haven't come up with it. So just a note for that. Next slide, please. Reduce the number of people with mental illness and or substance abuse disorders who experience homelessness. So all of these substance use disorders, serious mental illness, and then co-occurring those two disorders, reducing all of those by 15%. That's going to mean that, you know, we do need to have those resources readily available. And I can say that sometimes that's not always the case. So we'll get to that. Number 3, goal 3, next slide, please. Increase the number of people permanently leaving homelessness. 150% to increase the number of people who exit homelessness to permanent housing and increase the number of people who retain permanent housing for 2 years after placement by 170%. So I want to say that when it comes to permanently leaving homelessness, prevention was under LAHSA and it's now moved to La Casa. So those resources, programs, services haven't been set up yet. So it's a pretty ambitious goal that we're not hitting the ground running on that one. Goal number 4, next slide, please. Prevent people from falling into homelessness, a reduction of 20%. I personally would like to see more of this, but this is what has been presented to us. Next slide, please. And finally, goal number 5, increase the number of affordable housing units in Los Angeles County. Increase the current level of affordable housing by 57%. Maintaining or increasing the level of affordable housing units being preserved of 416 annually. And increasing the number of vouchers, project-based and housing vouchers. So actually, I think I have a question about that number because is it 25,000 or is this wrong? So, but that is the high-level presentation, what the county is looking to set our benchmark and goals by April 1st. We don't have a lot of in this, so I'm hoping that the ECRA committee, myself, holding them to the data and accountability moving forward and setting some data metrics. But I know we're going to go through the detailed local solutions funding, which is really important for all of us. And I know Addie, are you going through that one?
Yeah, I'll do that after, but if you all have any questions or feedback regarding the goals and metrics that Paige just shared so that she can take it back to the exec board, that'd be super helpful.
And I'll stick around for your presentation too, because I think it's important, the feedback about the local solutions fund as well. But yes, any questions about?
I was gonna say, I think it's hard to know how the goals are without looking at some of the detailed funding.
Yeah, we can do that now.
But you have some questions?
Yeah.
So I just have a question on the order of the goals. I mean, to me, they seem to be backwards. Like goal number 4 should be goal number 1. Let's prevent people from becoming homeless.
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking about everything about treating the symptoms and we bury the cause. Like so I mean, it seems to be very backwards to me on how we rate the goals. And we only have one goal that actually talks about the underlying cause of homelessness, which I think was goal number 3, which was mental illness, but we don't talk about drug addiction or alcohol. So it seems like we're
Substance abuse in there. It was built in there.
okay.
But
But it seems like we're very focused on trying to do things with the symptoms as opposed to address the cause of all of this, which seems to be just kind of.
correct. Yes, that is.
So.
That has been some comments made to the agencies about that. Specifically, the reduction in prevention. And like I pointed out, their goal was 20% reduction in prevention. Like I said, I would like to see more because we can stem the bleed and then focus on some of the other things. I completely agree with you.
Really should be like 50%. I mean, let's turn off the tide of people falling into homelessness. Yes. Huh?
It's also cheaper.
Oh, absolutely. From both a personal point of view as well as a fiscal point of view. But I think looking at how we arrange the goals, they look like they're very backwards and very focused on after the fact, as opposed to number 4 is let's prevent it from happening. Number 3 is let's treat the causes. And then, the housing kind of comes after that, but that seems to be, I think we're focused on the wrong things, my opinion.
I can also offer, and Paige, you actually mentioned earlier when we spoke about this, how for some of these goals, like it's almost like they have built-in crutches, because for example, in goal number 2, for decreasing 15% across the board for folks experiencing serious mental illness or substance use disorder, that's going to be largely carried out by DMH, right? Department of Mental Health. So then there's like that level of like, we're now renouncing accountability and responsibility. And then even for goals number 4 and 5, those are goals that will be carried out by this brand new agency, La Casa, who we hope that they hit the ground running, but the reality is when has an entity that large ever hit the ground really running? So there's not really like a grace period or a runway there. So I know that you shared some apprehension around whether they'd be able to, get these. And so the reason prevention is low as well, when I go into the bigger budget, is because they've allotted the prevention fund from the CEOHI's budget over to the La Casa agency. So there's also been feedback in both like the homeless deputies meetings and the executive meetings about apprehensions of destabilizing current systems in place by giving that amount of money over from CEOHI to La Casa, and there not being like a real tangible plan in place right now. So this is feedback that they have received, and you can continue to take that back.
I'm taking it all.
So question, La Casa. They're getting what, about $380 million to divvy up right now to play with?
A lot, yeah.
They have 1 employee.
Correct. Yes.
The business of homelessness is booming in LA County.
Yes, it is.
So my understanding is that La Casa was written into the ballot measure when it was actually approved. So I would figure that if they were this good at what they did, they would already have a strategy going into this, assuming that they were going to win this. And it seems like they don't have one. So you have goals, but 0 strategies. No, I'm asking rhetorical questions. I apologize.
I don't have.
I have
It's difficult to wrap your head around and try to give you feedback when the entire system is messed up to begin with.
I can add a little bit on La Casa since I attend those meetings. Basically, exactly like you're saying, they're forming their strategic plan right now. Now that they've heard that they have Measure A funding, they're like, okay, now we can start making plans, but that's sort of like.
So were they shocked? They were the only ones playing in the game. So it was them or it was 0.
So they've got consultants working on their strategic plan, and they have been a little bit apprehensive about this prevention bucket getting put on them as well, at least in the meetings that they've been having these discussions. They don't want to be backfill for the county, is what they say. So there's a lot of concern from both like us as local jurisdictions, from our partners as well, of like, what is going on with this prevention dollar?
Combined with all the buckets of money that are being filled with Measure A. How many approximately different buckets is there? You got La Casa, you got,
Right there.
right? So basically they're all, basically they're all battling over that total dollar to see who gets the most.
It's in the measure.
Yeah, it's in the measure.
Yeah,
Not fighting.
it's like 33% or something for La Casa.
Right. Or they're trying to figure out how it's gonna be allocated and what they have to use with
Yeah.
it. Gotcha.
The state level bill does have requirements for what La Casa has to give out to local jurisdictions as well. So we will be getting some funding from Measure A through La Casa as well. Not just.
How's that determined?
It is in the state bill that established La Casa as an agency. So each bucket that they have for like production and for prevention all have specific percentages of like 70% needs to go to local jurisdictions. So they're,
Yes, I didn't read through the ballot measure before you vote on it, huh?
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
I've got a couple questions. Affordable housing, are there enough projects in queue today to help you meet your goal?
Likely not. I mean, as you know, when projects get approved, they have a range of affordable housing that they can, your housing element's gonna say, I allocate 12 affordable units here, but the developer doesn't have to build 12. They could qualify with 3 and it still counts through your number, but you're not meeting your goal. So typically, every project is a little more delinquent, so likely not.
The second question I have is the impact of the fires in Palisades and Eaton, et cetera. Are those numbers in your, what impact is there on housing for folks that are unhoused from that?
I mean, I think the impact is going to be massive. The housing need is just that much greater now. I mean, it kind of pushes out the bottom rung of those being able to get housed. So it's even worse.
Media has already said that they're going to use money for those people.
Interesting. Okay. And then my last question is funding from the feds. What obstacles are you seeing coming down the road?
I don't know yet. So, yet to be seen.
Okay.
There is one that they've been talking about. I went to a meeting earlier this week, one of them being the housing vouchers. We're not expecting as many Section 8 from the federal level. So that's gonna have a huge impact on that objective for that goal that was discussed. So we're gonna see a big hit there for sure.
Right, so, I mean, many of these goals, as I mentioned, are not solely dependent on Measure A funds. So it makes it very complicated and difficult to feel good about it, I would say. One of the comments that was made at the last meeting was, you know, why don't we have just goals based on this funding alone?
Yeah.
And that was heard. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Thank you.
And actually, that was going to be my question. So why just concentrate on the Measure A funding? Because we know probably for these 2 to 4 years, we might not get enough money from the federal government because we already know the administrator have put some condition actually to send emergency funding to California, you know, based on ABCD. So how are they going to solve all these issues? And I'm with my colleague over here. Mental health is number one thing, right? That we need to deal with because building housing, and then some of those people, you know, they have to have stable life. You know, it had to be so self-sufficient. They had to be ready for houses. If they're not, you know, they might just leave the apartment, go sleep on the street again.
So I'm totally lost in this, but as far as we get a lot of our money for homelessness, my understanding is through the COG, right? All right. How much is the local solutions fund where the COG's gonna get its money from?
Yes.
And how many
We're
other
gonna-
COGs are there that are gonna share that 96 million? And what's gonna be the results of
We're
the
gonna
funding
break
for the
that
COG?
Yes, this is what we're gonna discuss next.
Okay.
But I think that is a really important point for this group here.
Yeah.
The comment was made, well, I guess I made the comment at the meeting that, you know, the COGs are representing about 73 of the 88 cities. And we have such a small share that would be allocated to all of us, and yet the ask from the county for us, the standard is really high. If we want money, we have to meet all of these goals. But we don't get that much money. So I guess my comment to them was, we can't do so much with this money, but if you're not gonna give us any more, then it just kind of signals to the cities that you're gonna solve the problem because you're not making us a partner in this. Just, we're getting the crumbs.
So are these goals things that we have to satisfy before we get the funding, or is it that to continue to get funding, you have to hit those goals, or?
Continue. So we'll get the money, but we'll have to be meeting the metrics as they continue to fund us.
Okay, and if we're already in a good low homelessness state like Redondo Beach, it's gonna be very difficult to hit that target, right? So it's not giving us credit for.
Right, and this is what we will discuss because they're trying to, the division of this local solutions fund has to come from a formula. And the baseline formula is the pit count. But as you can imagine, by default, if you're using the pit count and you're being successful at decreasing your homeless population, you will be penalized by getting less funds going forward. And your programs will likely suffer and you'll go backwards. So that doesn't work. The discussion is what formula can we use that actually incentivizes communities to participate in the solution? And this is where we are.
Yeah.
I'll turn it over.
No, that's perfect segue. And I just wanted to put this up here so that we understand, right, that Measure A replacing Measure H is just, you know, a half-cent tax that's getting ready to generate $1.2 billion in taxpayer funds to fund homeless services. And so I just wanted you all to see the breakdown, right? Like we have 642 million for comprehensive services, and of that 60%, 15%, the local solutions funds is usually what the cities and COGs get. Homeless solutions innovations are usually for like innovative pilot programs that is pretty much open to everyone. And then comprehensive homeless services, we'll see on the next slide in a moment. Accountability data and research is brand new. It was probably one of the primary reasons that Measure A even passed, is because folks thought that they would be getting accountability, but then with, you know, a little further digging, that may not be the case, or maybe folks have different ideas of what accountability and data looks like. And then LACTA, so local housing production, and then that last number 4 is what La Casa is getting, so $382 million. And if you go to the next slide for my visual learners, this is what that $637 million is of comprehensive services, right? So we'll see here that 49% of it is going to housing permanent. And so we've seen, right, that for COHI, a lot of the feedback that they've received over the past couple of years has been like, we need housing. Nonprofits, local agencies are very much of the housing first mentality. I know that it can be polarizing or there's disagreements, right? Whether we're treating substance use or mental illness or housing or prevention. I'm of the prevention mind because, you know, prevention is better than a cure, but so we'll see a large portion of this going to housing, administration 23 million, coordination and connection. So this is just the pie. And then we have that small little line. So if we go to the next slide, so how does this impact us, right? So of that $637 million, the local solution fund is $96.3 million. And then we're splitting it up between all of the cities in LA County.
Including LA.
And including LA City. And we'll see like later how that really impacts us. But the reason that we're bringing it up is, as Councilmember Kaloderovic said, is that we're allocated a small portion of a large budget and we're held to the same expectations or at times even higher expectations of performance than a lot of the nonprofits or local, you know, social agencies. So if the intention is for cities and COGs to be partners in addressing this crisis, then our funding should reflect that. And as of now, it doesn't. So it's not looking as collaborative as it should. And so then we'll go to the next slide and then we can break down in the next slide, and then we can break down the LSF.
Yeah, some of the proposed formulas of how they'll break this up.
Okay. Yeah. So I believe Ron presented a version of this at the last board meeting or steering committee. But this is essentially a breakdown of all the scenarios, like what the formulas are. And then I've put up our COG as well as San Gabriel Valley COG for comparison, and also LA City, so we can kind of see how those numbers compare. Scenario 1, which is a multi-year hit count average. So between, for example,
Everybody knows what the hit count is.
Point in time count, we just did the homeless count last week. Yeah. So they'll take 2 years and they'll take the average of it. That's definitely better than just 1 year because it balances some of the volatility fluctuations that we would get with just like year by year. So that is what they're using as the baseline. And then in scenario 2 would be just taking the most recent pit count. The multi-year for scenario 3, multi-year average pit count plus an incentive is basically they're taking out 10% of the local solutions fund as like some incentive fund that they've not really defined how that's going to be given out in any way. They're just like, we'll have 10% of a bucket for some incentive. The other 90% will be determined like scenario 1 with that pit count average of the 2 years. And then scenario 4, this is where it starts to get interesting because they are recommending a 90%, the same pit count average between the 2 years, plus a 10% of the funds will be based on this measure from the American Community Survey, which is done by the US Census Bureau. The measure that they're using is they're taking this 5-year estimate for this measure of families who make less than $10,000. This is meant to be a proxy measure for the McKinney-Vento Act definition of homelessness, which is essentially accounting for families who are doubled up in a household. This is commonly used in school districts to assess student homelessness. So this is a really useful measure to understand which families are experiencing homelessness that are kind of being lost in this definition that is used for the pit count. And this also really will support our families, which is a huge thing that we need in the South Bay and across the county that is being really overlooked. So that incorporation is really positive. In scenario 5, instead of this 10% ECS families measure, they want to allocate 10% of the funding using the very low income RENA allocation. And then the last one is kind of a combo of scenario 4 and 5, which is saying 90% on that pit count average, 5% on that family's proxy measure, and then 5% on RENA. You'll see what I've done with some of the shading here. The darkest shading is within each row, the highest value. So for our COG and for St. Gabriel COG, and I believe as well for Gateway, scenario 4 is the one where we would get the highest allocation. You'll see that for LA City, that is the lowest allocation that they get out of the 6. And then for LA City, their highest is scenario 1, and then their second highest is scenario 2. Our second highest is scenario 6 after scenario 4.
This is sort of a maze, but I wanted to say that what's in play and the columns that are the most important, I guess, for you to pay attention to. Scenario 1 is what we understand the county wanted. Scenario 4 is something that we want, and I'll say, come back to that in a second. We just heard last night that scenario 6 is what they think they're going to be recommending, that the CEO, I guess, is going to recommend this to the board. And the reason they're recommending it, which if this is the reason, is very scientific, that they're saying it splits the difference between scenario 1 and 4. Okay, so I just wanted to mention, I'm in constant contact, and so is Ronson, with San Gabriel Valley and Gateway. We're talking all the time. And all of us are for scenario 4. The reason we're for scenario 4 is it happens to give us the most money, but it also is the most realistic. If you look at what it is, it's looking at the poverty number and it's looking at the point in time a number. If you look at scenario 1, it's not based on anything more than what we all know is a somewhat inaccurate count. And if you look at scenario 6, it's based on RENA, which nothing should be based on because it's ridiculous.
Yes.
So why we would base something on RENA doesn't make any sense. So what I've said, just so you would know, and you might want to, before you start talking, I believe instead of sitting here and waiting for the county to say, we want scenario 6, we want scenario 1. I have talked to both Gateway and to San Gabriel Valley about us trying to get a meeting with not the county, Jesselyn, but with other agencies such as Long Beach, who's getting their own allocation, and the city of LA, and saying, okay, these are some scenarios, but how do we come up with a plan and we present that plan to the county? Because we should take control of what this all means. And it seems to me one of the scenarios that I heard, which could be one on the table, is you go with scenario 4 and you tell LA that they can access another pot for some additional incentive money. So there's other things that are there, and we're being constrained by these 6. And it seems to me we have to break through with meeting with some of the other players, and Paige's commission. Yeah, right here.
Is LA, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's
What's LA receiving now? We're at 2.2 generally, roughly, right?
Yeah.
And is LA City estimated to go up?
I'm not
totally sure.
I thought Ronson said they weren't receiving anything from this point.
We're all estimated to go up. I think the
LA City's kind of hard. Because
they get so many fundings from other sources.
To your point, they got a bunch of pots to play with.
So that is difficult.
That's a good point, is that the swings for.
Do you want to do the next city? The next.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
there
you
you
can click it again. So I added an animation. Yeah.
Yeah, so what this is showing is the swings between each scenario and formula are significant for smaller COGs, cities, where for the city of LA, it's negligible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. What we're being told is that the city of LA wants one thing, that we want something, somebody else wants something, but the county's doing all of the negotiating. And they're doing all of the looking. I think we need to get into a room and do it ourselves. And so I'm hoping we can arrange that.
Whose brilliant idea was that, the arena? Was that something that was mandated, or did somebody say, hey, this is a great idea, when we all know it's
I don't know.
The latter.
It's
not mandated.
It's 5% what? What's VLI?
Very low income. So RENA has the different like income.
That's an exercise. We all know arena is an exercise in futility. So the fact that's even part of the equation is nonsensical.
Yeah, that's what that's it. They may not even be built like 2030.
And who is the group that put these scenarios together? Who are they?
Yeah, we check.
Yeah. The CEO, okay, the County Executive Office Homeless Initiative. That's the county staff that works on homelessness. And they're working scenarios, and they're the ones that are I don't want to be constrained by these, you know, why do
No.
I care about this?
I mean, if we're gonna have scenarios, they should reflect reality. And RENA does not reflect reality. So the fact that that is considered with so much at stake is nonsensical.
Yeah, did you guys get the copy from the CEO's office relating to the drop? And then every city, what they get? Because that's something that would be helpful to all of our members to have, because it breaks it down. So you can tell what LA City gets. You can tell what each of the COG get and the individual cities. Individual cities,
That's based on the scenario.
based on each scenario, they have it broken down.
Yeah, they are.
Want to make copies of this.
There's gonna be like slight differences, but they'll have a new posting of those numbers and,
This just was presented to us yesterday.
okay.
The other thing that can happen, which is happening, I don't know if I should say this, the reason why the county did that, I might be, is that they're trying to pick off the larger cities. And we already know that the county is meeting with the city of Inglewood to talk to them about getting their allocation away from the council of governments. Well, we all know that our homelessness is, if we share it, we can address it together and we can take a bigger bite out of it. So we've talked to the city of Inglewood staff to say that they have a meeting with the county. When you meet with the county, don't ask for more money. If you can get more money, sure, but don't take our money, because that's money that's going to affect the whole subregion. So I think, we believe they broke it down by city in order to get the cities to try to figure out, oh, well, we can get this money.
And Inglewood is pushing the homeless stores out south from my city.
And they're getting more money.
The ultimate decision, all this, right, whatever happens. Who are the ultimate deciders on this? Is it the board, is it the board of supervisors? Okay, so is this over a 2-year period? So this is a 2-year plan? What is the, because this is, the thing with Measure A is that it's a forever gift.
Yes.
It's the gift that keeps on giving into eternity. And in a
Recognizing-
few years, we're gonna have more than 5 supervisors. So does that go back into the whole washing machine and kind of figure it out again, what we're gonna do? How long is this plan for? Is this for 1 fiscal year?
So the recommendations are presented as a 5-year,
5-year plan.
5-year goals. This was brought up in the committee, because I mean, it's a short turnaround to come up and commit to the next 5 years, in a month and a half. So, the comment that I made was, can we revise the goals? Can we revise the allocations? And what we were told is that we can revise the allocations only in what is not written in the measure. So the buckets that were, the local solutions fund, the innovation fund, and what's the other services? Anyway, those pieces, they can move around a little. There's minimums, but they can move around a little bit, but
This board of supervisors is 5 votes.
Yeah.
Whoever gets 3, that's the way it works. The rest of this is just talk. In other words, in the end, it goes to the board of supervisors. Okay,
yeah, so we're recommending bodies, but
I got you.
Some votes require 5.
Can we go back?
Okay, so
I don't know this one.
with the ultimate one, so it would cover, so all 5 would have.
I don't know. I'm just saying, it's not all, they're not all like, 3 votes and it's.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, but this is a whole
and 2
big
boards
giant pool of money here.
on the committee.
Okay,
Barger and Horvath are there, as well as Mayor Bath.
okay.
Can we go back to the fire slide with the actual numbers on it, please? How does that compare to what the COG currently gets?
So we currently get about 2.2 million, so.
Okay, so it'd be a little bit more.
Yeah,
Another 0.5%.
Okay, and how do we effectively weigh in to try to get scenario 4 or scenario 6? Because, before Measure A was passed, I recall we all discussed, the COG voted not to endorse a yes on Measure A. And then we see the supervisor and Mayor Bass at a climate resiliency conference, and they're confident it's gonna pass. So that's kind of like, it's at odds with kind of. So now here we are again at odds with what they're planning to do. How do we effectively weigh in and get this to go the region's way.
I think what Jackie was suggesting as meeting with possibly the city of LA, could be Nithya. Committee, and just because I think that the logic is that because the swings are so big for us, we should be the one to pick the formula. Because it's negligible for the others and it's our money. Right, it's the money that we'll be using to address our problems on the ground and we can do that. So I think it does need to be maybe packaged and presented to the Board of Supervisors, or I mean, even the ECR committee as it should be ours. And I think we have a lot more weight on the ECR committee because we have 4 members that represent the cities out of the 5, or excuse me, out of the 9 that are on the committee. We have 4 that represent us.
Are they listening to you?
Smaller cities, I should say. Who are
The decision makers, the supervisors, the mayor, are they listening to what the smaller cities are saying?
During these discussions, they are. I mean, we all kind of are saying the same things. We are frustrated with the what is existing now with the larger agencies, with the lack of accountability, the lack of visibility. One of the things that especially the city of LA is complaining about, they have no visibility of the outcomes or the money they pour in. They don't get to see how much was spent here and at this shelter, how many times were outreach workers there. There's just no visibility. And so that there's a common sentiment in that, frustration with outcomes. And that's where it comes back to what Addie was saying with accountability and the data portion of this that was built into the measure. They need to be held to that. The budget that was presented, they moved the funding for the pit count into the data spot. So they just put it in there. And
Like it's supposed to be used for accountability, but then we're using it to fund a pit count and improved HMIS. And so I actually was not surprised that it passed. And I was actually one of the people in the very beginning that was like, oh, I think it will pass because at least in my personal life, my friend group was like, I'm really pumped about this accountability piece. Like some people were like, why would I continue throwing money into a money pit? And people are like, no, it'll be different this time because of the accountability layer. And then we get to the accountability and then they're just kind of like, oh, just kidding. Like we're going to put a homeless count in here and HMIS. And so that, I don't know that that really means accountability for people. So I think we have different definitions of accountability.
One last point, if I may, on the equity side is we were previously getting $2.2 million under 10%.
Yes, right.
And you're doubling the tax that the region's paying, but then giving us potentially, what's that, 10% more?
Yeah.
Less than 10%?
Not even that,
10%.
like $200,000 more.
That's inequitable.
But Paige, let's be conscious what we debating here, right? Because right now, when you said Boja and Ovid is on that committee with Karen Bass, they're going to throw at us that LA, because of the fires, and you know, Ovid represent Malibu and Pacific Palisades, and the other one represent Altadena and all that area. So this is a battle that we're gonna win, or is already written that they're gonna get what they going to choose?
We won't know until we fight.
Good luck, Jackie. But I can see it written black and white that they're going to throw at us because of the fires, because there is more homeless now in those areas. They need this money. And they're going to see that if there is no federal dollar coming, so they're going to use all this money to do what they need to do.
News media has already said that both of them are already pushing money from those kind of areas.
Exactly. And yeah, and we probably going to even go, I'll tell you, the way I'm looking at this thing and the way I'm being listening, we're going to lose. But we can fight. But we're going to fight.
Alex is. Sorry, go ahead, Bea.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, is anybody?
I know,
on
I have to go.
Alex, please.
Yes.
Okay, if anybody done any calculations of how much money we in the South Bay contribute in sales taxes? vis-a-vis the money we're getting, because I think that, the return on investment is something I hear a lot from cities when we were talking about, the prior Measure H. And that's what this was supposed to like improve on and get more, and also have accountability, which we're learning is not really accountability. So that is going to be a big issue. And I think the Board of Supervisors they would be helpful if we had that money and then compare it to what we're getting.
So we did have a discussion at the ECRA meeting on that. The mayor from Palmdale, who's the representative from that region, brought that and, just laid it out and they discussed it. Ronson has a good perspective of it though. Like, for example, much of the permanent supportive housing may not be in your city or this region, but we still have access to it. So we do have some, I guess it's not directly associated with the local solutions fund that we get access to, but we do get other support from the county, but not enough for what we're putting in. And that point was made, but I think we need to keep saying it.
But you need data to be able to make the numbers, because they're comparing numbers that are coming out, but they don't have the numbers from us, from the South Bay COG going in.
Some areas, so like when I attended
Very hard to find.
yeah, it was someone in San Gabriel COG for the city council meeting that we had to watch.
yeah.
So they had like consultants come in and run all those numbers and they did present it to the county. And so the county this time around has been really intentional with highlighting, and we just were on a meeting today where they reiterated the fact that in Measure A language, this is not a local return like measure. So for folks that keep continuing to bring that up, they did name it again today. They're like, this is not a local return measure, right? This is not what comes to this language. This is a fund or a tax that we're collecting, and it's distributed according to what's in the measure language. So they have been presented with that data, not from the South Bay region, but from other regions from different COGs in different cities. They've been presented with the cold hard data, and their response to that was, well, this is not a local return measure. This is separate to that.
Well,
So they have tried that avenue.
I understand, but when you're talking about arguing for the scenario 4, I think having that data is important to just say, look, you're already taking all this money. We're just asking for a bigger piece of pie because we are putting in all this much money. That's all.
I think, Alex, your point's spot on, that it's probably already written, but maybe to bolster our case, aren't a lot of the people who have had to leave the Palisades looking at housing in the South Bay?
Yeah.
And isn't that gonna have the end effect of driving up demand and therefore driving up the costs and reducing the affordability of housing in the South Bay?
Yeah.
And so, isn't that another reason why we need to bring housing resources to the area?
Yeah, it's true. And I have to tell you that for them in the past, I made the case about giving you more money to Hawthorne for homeless because through that other measure, we would a year, $4 million were going to the county coffer, and then $45,000 was coming back to Hawthorne. So think about that.
Appreciate all your efforts. I know this is hard. I mean, it makes all of our heads hurt. I can only imagine what you.
Good tech, leave the next meeting.
The troubling thing is we're trying to jam this thing through for a 1 April deadline.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The metrics alone,
We should.
I mean, I'm no expert on any of this stuff, but I look at them and go, it's not ascertainable. It's not even realistic. Normally, you're gonna have something that's at least, somewhat ascertainable. That isn't. We know it isn't. Anybody could look at that and go, those numbers are just they're not realistic. And so we're setting ourselves up for failure, number one. And if we're not giving ourselves another look at it anytime soon, we're obviously not gonna meet any of these metrics. And I, my never ending frustration is, what's some of the local cities are doing with regard to, the pallet shelters, getting people off the streets. For the life of me, I don't understand why we don't have these super pallet shelters where you've got 50 and 60 and 70 of these pallet shelters with all the wraparound services there. And we keep talking about permanent supportive housing. Let's get the super pallet shelters, get them off the street. It's a lot cheaper than doing what we're doing now. And if we had the room, believe me, I'd push for it. The county's got, there's property out there, right? There is a lot of property. I mean, I'm a military guy. I've been in a tent city with 10,000 people with wraparound services. right? And you tell me we can't do a few of those throughout the county? And we keep talking about permanent supportive housing. That ain't happening. We're not building permanent housing anytime soon, especially at the $800,000 price range we're paying now. It's just not realistic. So while I appreciate the effort and all this and the aspirations, it's just it's a self-licking ice cream cone. And it's to my colleague's point, it's the homelessness industrial complex.
I mean, what is,
And I know I'm ranting here, but I mean, it's so frustrating because we're all advocates of doing the right thing. And I mean, just the fact that Ronson talked at ICA about the program we have to prevent the homelessness, to David's point, right? The fact that is not first and foremost. Hey, we can pay to fix your car, give you a couple months rent, right? So you can get your head above water. That should be a priority.
yes.
I mean, so it's so frustrating. And that's why you go, okay, you know, we're getting what we deserve, so to speak, but it's not right. And I just don't understand what the decision makers don't understand. And I'm not the smartest guy on the block, for sure. But if I can figure it out with my Florida education, you know.
Come on, Jackson.
Right? So.
You know, this is the best now, you have to go to the pipeline. What we can do now is advocate for the best formula for us and then follow through with the accountability and the data at every meeting after that. And I can email all of you so that you can email the supervisors with the ongoing frustration. But, you know, those are the tools we have right now. And it's not a new problem.
No,
And now we
that's
don't-
why it's so frustrating. That's right. We're just throwing more money. It's like, you know, as we say, pissing in the wind, excuse my
Yeah.
bluntness, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah, one of our frustrations is our client aid is working.
Yes,
And
that should be a model for
and-
us to emulate.
there's no forum for us to say to everybody else, well, why don't we try this? You know, there's no lessons learned in any of this.
Yes,
The epitome of rewarding bad behavior. You literally, if you did a good job, which many of you have done a great job on your utilizing your own money, you are now going to be punished for that. So if you did a horrible job, which LA City has done, now you get rewarded for that. And judgment, by the way, that 58 million, the way I just my quick
yeah.
Massachusetts public school education. Based on what housing costs in the first tranche of this, you can build about 75 houses.
Yeah.
It cost $800,000 to build what, one bedroom, I think is what it was, a studio at this point in time. That's the average cost of what.
Wait a second, I think LA City was able to build some housing for 1.2 million per unit. So, you know, I mean, they did exceed the levels on that.
I know, we're just taking pot shots now. I'm sorry, Paige, but
Sorry, it's just
easy right now. Yeah, I know.
Right. Well, we need
Not alone.
reasonable people like you because it just.
Well, yes, I hope next time I have better news for you. We'll work on it.
Thank you.
Paige.
Paige.
Perfect.
A letter that we want to send and Miranda was going to HS to we.
But we gotta go.
Maybe home.
Yeah.
Walmart sells tiny homes now.
And I don't know if
Yeah, pretty tiny home.
you didn't introduce yourself, did you?
Oh.
And Miranda didn't introduce herself.
Yes.
Yeah, jump right in.
Adi Jalaya, Project Coordinator, Homeless Services, South Bay COGS.
And put tiny home.
Services Project Coordinator.
Okay.
All yours.
Yeah, so.
You've got this letter in front of you, by the
Yeah,
way.
there's a copy if anybody does, and I have a few extras. But one thing that we can
Page.
do is, you know, send letters to supervisors, make sure that you have that documentation. So I'm just gonna go through the paragraphs at sort of a high level. It's kind of already what I was talking about with some of the previous slides, but just in paragraph form. So paragraph 1 is just very introductory, and then we get into the meat of it. Paragraph 2, we're really just talking about the benefits of scenario 4. So a lot of what I was talking about before with using that average of the 2 years for the PIC count. So we reduce that volatility and fluctuations that would happen if we were just doing year over year. It's inclusive of family needs because of that American Community Survey measure of using families who make less than $10,000 and very explicitly, they are referring to families, not households, not individuals. It's a family measure. And that is encompassing as a proxy, the McKinney-Vento definition of homelessness that I mentioned, which defines homelessness as any individual who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence that includes doubling up and sharing households. Paragraph 3, let's go back one more. Yeah, so paragraph 3 really quick is essentially just saying that we would be supportive of increasing that weighting, right? Because family needs are really, really important. We're seeing to be overlooked. So having that higher weight on ACS, one would again remove the pick count reliance that we have on allocating funding, and then have a more 5-year measure on supporting families. Also, we could use a 3-year average instead of a 2, again, to have that number be a little bit more stable and less volatile. So that's what paragraph 3 is saying, and then we can do paragraph 4. You can click again too. So paragraph 4, this is a critique of the other scenarios. It's a bit chunky, but essentially this is the breakdown of here. So scenarios 1 and 2, as I mentioned, 1 being the 23-24 pit count only, and 1-year pit count data. As we said, it's very volatile, it's an inaccurate measure. It's really just the status quo. There's also, again, as we discussed, concerns about cities the implementation or being successful in emergency homelessness. Scenario 3, that pit count plus incentive, it's a really big concern here. In addition to what was discussed for scenarios 1 and 2, but there are no details regarding how this incentive fund would be administered, how it's going to be built out. And then for scenario 5 and 6, those are the ones that include the regional housing investment, variable income allocation as part of the formula. They would be using the progress report. So there's concerns about using that. Slow pace of the RENA cycle, that 8-year cycle, doesn't get updated very often. So we're really locking people in. And then the other fact that I think we've kind of all been discussing already is that cities don't have a lot of control over like the price of housing development or the housing market. So really putting people in these constraints that they can't control. And that's a really big concern. The other thing potentially is CASA's funding allocations will also be somewhat based on pro rata housing needs, potentially from RENA as well. So it could be redundant with these CASA allocations. So why are we using this thing, both of them? But they have still yet to be determined how those allocations will be built out. Next slide. Yeah, so this paragraph 5 is laying out what we talked about in terms of the range, essentially saying that we are going to take a much bigger hit if the wrong scenario is chosen compared to LA City. In this case, comparing scenario 1 and scenario 4, we would lose 27% of the overall funds compared to scenario 1 versus LA City is only going to lose. Look at one more time. And then this last paragraph, or second to last paragraph, and essentially saying like, there's this huge bucket of money. Why are we not considering giving more of this bucket to local jurisdictions? One thing that was brought up today in the homeless policy deputies meeting is that the language of Measure A says at least 50%, 15% allocated to local solutions fund. So it could go over 15%. The board of supervisors could please do 20% to local solutions fund. That would then come at the cost, as CEO Ahai said, from this bucket here, but there is a floor. And right now they're only calculating with the floor of 15% for local solutions fund. So that's another thing that we could advocate for as well in terms of why are we not looking at this whole bucket? Why are we looking at the minimum that is required?
And we maybe don't even want to phrase it as like it's going to come at the expense of this larger bucket, because in reality, it would become at the expense of maybe like streamlining LASA or, decentralizing some of all of the services that they have. So it wouldn't have to come at the expense of like permanent housing or something actually, I don't want to say that the services LASA provide aren't important, but it instead of having LASA administer it, they could have us administer these funds and continue to do the work that we've already done, that we have the data to back that up, right, for successes for. So I don't want to say like at the expense of the larger bucket, because there are areas that we could, pull from that wouldn't necessarily like super negatively impact housing or, mental health supports or any of those.
We could use those funds for housing or
Yes.
interim housing, college shelters. So it's not like these buckets are gonna be lost. It just means that the county isn't gonna be controlling them.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's just a kind of concluding paragraph at the end. That's what it is right there. Yeah.
Question, why is this only addressed to Supervisor Mitchell? Instead of both supervisors or the supervisors that are in the committee with Paige?
This is just how I drafted it, but it can always be changed.
She's the best.
Well, we're gonna send it to the other six.
I'll send it to all supervisors.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Sample.
Yeah, our plan is to send it to all of, we should send it to all five.
Okay.
On the note of trying to have a big effect, does it behoove us to go to the other COGs and get them to join with us on signing this letter or
I've
making
sent
a
the
letter
letter
on
to
behalf?
them. Yeah, they've done it.
All these COGs are in agreement. It affects us all in the same way. And then, sending it to all the supervisors. And anybody else, including maybe Mayor Bass.
Yeah, we should probably send it to Mayor Bass too. I've sent the letter to Gateway and San Gabriel Valley. I guess last night I sent it to all of the COG coordinators. Some of them are sending their own letters. We're all coming out with scenario 4. So, to do one letter, I have found would be
Is it
nice,
possible?
but it
Okay.
doesn't work.
Or maybe including here, we're joined in favoring
Right.
scenario 4 by such and such COGs, all these COGs.
Okay.
Representing however many number of cities, right? 73 cities,
Yeah,
right?
it's like, yeah.
Highlight that.
Can I have the letter addressed to also to the late Lindsay Corbat? So I'm gonna see her next Thursday. I'm gonna stay with her for about 3 hours so I can just talk to her about if having this letter in the hand.
3 hours, wow.
And
Yeah.
a separate letter to each supervisor, but the same letter.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. That would be helpful. And then you can CC that the other, they know they're getting the same.
Motion.
Yeah, let's just say the board authorized.
Motion to authorize the letter as amended.
Second.
Lord, get a second?
Objections?
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Hello.
You might not be here next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Those directions are even worse than the first one.
Good presentation.
Let's move on to the next things of order.
Right,
Uh,
okay.
Go ahead, Jackie. mid-year.
The mid-year budget is the next item. We come to you every year with a mid-year budget where we look at all the things we've done, try to true it up and make sure that you know what changes there are and how we are tracking with the budget you adopted. The way we work is we're actually going to adopt the mid-year budget and it becomes our new budget for the rest of the year. So I'm going to ask Kim Fuentes to go through it with you and
Actually, Laura's gonna do
oh,
it.
Laura's
Right
gonna
here.
do it?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Our finance administrative officer is gonna do it.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Laura?
So let's start with the summary slide. This is just our org chart, and then in the summary, I think if you could please share the PowerPoint instead. Sorry. We do have these details in the board packet, but just for the sake of presenting tonight, we have a PowerPoint for you.
Coming.
Thank you. So just a summary of what's already in the board packet. Like Jackie mentioned, we have our adopted budget and we have now what we're proposing from now till basically the end of the fiscal year. So the differences are outlined here. We've basically had both increases in our revenue and also expenditures. So for our revenue, the increase was about 6%, and for our expenditures, it was about 4.3%. And if you go next,
Laura, do you
please.
want to, on that slide right there, do you want to, also just to let you know, and you're approving it tonight, an additional contract. And so the revenues less expenditures is actually going to go up to about, what is it, 150,000?
154,
Another
yes.
25,000 that we were able to secure under contract. And so the final budget will have that difference. Go ahead.
Yes, that's for our decarbonization direct install contract, and it's actually in your packet as well tonight to be finalized and approved. Another chart just to quickly see our big overall picture. For our revenues, we continue to predominantly have most of our revenue from grants and contracts, so about 88%. That is then followed by 7% coming from our membership dues. And lastly, we have other general fund reserves or revenues that make about 5%. On the expenditure side, we have the main category being professional and contractual services, and that's basically to implement the work that comes from our grants and contracts. The big green area on the left, that's basically to implement that work. And then it's followed by 35% for supplies and services, also predominantly to implement grants and contracts. And last but not least, we have 27% for our salaries and our benefits. This is just noteworthy changes for all of the revenue increases that we just mentioned, the 6%. So the biggest one was the interest income. We're always very conservative in how we estimate we're going to earn in interest. So our LEAF interest actually came in $90,000 higher than we had anticipated or projected. So that's that increase. That's followed by our Metro REAP 2.0 contract that is new funding, and it's now, there was a hold and now the contract is in motion. So that's about a $51,000 increase. There's also REAP 2.0 that's directly through SCAG, and it's for commercial redevelopment. So we had REAP 1 was mostly a study, and now this is the implementation phase of REAP, and that's about $107,000 increase. It's followed by the contract that Kim just mentioned, the decarbonization residential direct install, and that's new funding of about $25,000 that is in this fiscal year, but the contract is for much more than that. And then last but not least, we have Measure M MSP. With all of the ITC work that we had to do, we did have an unforeseen increase there of $34,000. For our expenditures, the 4% that we just discussed, we did have actually a noteworthy reduction in salaries and benefits. So that was about $128,000 in reduction. It's followed by an increase of about 13% for our contractual services, basically all of the vendors, consultants that implement our grants and contract work. It's about $307,000. And we have a breakdown of what that actually entails for each contractor in the packet. And lastly, because we are anticipating or a possible move might be coming up for us, we did want to be prudent and include our first and last month rent if we do actually make the move, which is about $23,000. And next. And this is just one final slide. We wanted to let you know that other than everything that's already been factored into the budget itself, we do have several new contracts that are starting. The one that Kim just mentioned, the last bullet point on that first paragraph, the LA County Decarbonization Residential Install, which added about $25,000 to our budget. And then we also have SCAG or REAP 2.0 provided by SCAG for commercial redevelopment, or the second phase of that, and also Metro REAP 2.0 mobility hubs. We also have several grants that we've either submitted or are pending approval or that we've applied for, and they've outlined here with a projection of what we might be getting. The Caltrans adaptation grant, that's about $350,000 that we might be getting. We also have another Caltrans grant, sustainability planning, that's about $400,000. And last but not least, I think this one was awarded, but federal grant is kind of holding the funds, the release of funds, and that would be $400,000, and that's our Safe Streets for All grant. And I think that concludes the budget. The details are all in the packet if you want to see line item details for any of the accounts, with a narrative that details the increase and decrease reasons for everything. And for now, I think that concludes my portion and opens the floor for questions.
Questions?
Are we gonna get this PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can make the PowerPoint available.
I
Yeah,
can email it.
and the- yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you for all your hard work. That's motion.
Motion approved.
Motion is on the floor. Second.
Second.
Have a second.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. General Assembly.
We're very excited that the General Assembly is coming together. As you know, it's our 30th anniversary.
Of the COG.
Of the COG, right? It's our 25th General Assembly. And so staff is working really hard on different party activities as well as office activities. And David, did you want me to talk more or do you want to?
Sure, I'm making notes of the motions if you want to start. and then-
So I will, so first of all, we're gonna have, so far we have 17 exhibits, but we always ask cities if they want exhibits. And I heard today that some cities actually show up and don't tell us. That doesn't really help because we have to, we're planning space. So.
Didn't even know that happened in the past.
Right.
Cities have really good plan B.
Yeah, right. So if your city wants to have an exhibit, I sent something out, please let us know so that we can plan the space and we'll welcome you with open arms instead of a harried look.
We never have that. We have, but we still want to know it.
So, and we should send a reminder out.
Yeah.
The program is going to be, we have several different things now on the program. We just heard today that the governor's senior advisor on climate issues will be coming. We wanted to talk a little, as you know, the program is about our accomplishments for the first 30 years and then where we're going for the next 30 years. And because of the fires and all of these environmental things that are happening, we thought it would be really interesting to talk about what that's going to look like in the future. So the governor's, Amanda Nelson, Hanson is her name. She just confirmed today, and she will be a guest speaker at the event talking about climate and as they're foreseeing the future for the state and hopefully for our area. So that's one thing we're having. We're also having a panel, and the panel is going to include Alta C, which is going to, well, I'm doing this backwards. We're going to start with our history. We're going to talk about our history. We're going to have our former chairs. Colleen has been really active interviewing our former chairs, and she's got, only like 7 hours of footage. So I'm gonna figure out how to break that into something that's manageable. But they're very excited, and we've got about there were 6 of them coming to the meeting. Don Kanabi will be coming to the meeting. He was always a great friend of the COG, and for something you don't know, I guess I tell you then, but he used to go to all the exhibitors with a microphone and talk to each of them, and it just was wonderful. So he's coming, and he's excited to come. And so we're going to talk about our past and what we've done and all the things that you'd be surprised we were involved in. And then we're going to have the probably the governor's person. We also are working with a firm that does a city simulator, and they help cities simulate what the future looks like. And we have sent them, they've done it in Charleston and other places, and we've sent them a couple of cities, names of cities. They're working on a hypothetical that they hope to present at the General Assembly of how they could simulate something in the
The idea
future.
is to help kind of plan for like infrastructure improvements, that sort of thing. So
Right.
in the case of a wildfire or earthquakes or sea level rise, those kinds of things, what is your really, what infrastructure is really in jeopardy? How do you start planning now to prevent the catastrophic failures
Right.
down the road?
And then we have a panel where we're gonna, I don't know how to say her name, Luana, I don't know.
Yeah, Luana Medina.
Luana is coming from the Southern California Regional Energy Network. She's a partner of ours, and she's going to talk about energy efficiency in the future. So taking our initiatives forward, we've got Altacy, which, as you know, has got all kinds of initiatives for the blue economy that they're going to be talking about. Terry Tamminen, who is the head of Altacy, will be coming. We have Dan Sturgis. Probably none of you, maybe he remembers. Dan Sturgis was this great guy who actually designed the first GEM vehicle, neighborhood electric vehicle. He is just an out of the box, off the wall, great guy. He's going to come and talk about mobility in the future and all of the dynamic innovations that are going on in that.
And who else?
Something that we learned when we talked to him is that the first one was designed in Torrance. So
Yes.
We're
didn't
the
know that.
originator of
Yes.
a lot of this.
Yes, so that was pretty interesting. So he's coming, and then we have a couple of other people that we're working with. And then we have the governor's person, and then we're gonna end the day with not only our raffle, but a youth panel, which instead of looking for youth all over the place, we've got some incredibly dynamic people that now work for the COG who are gonna talk about what they've heard during the day, how cities ought to be thinking about the city that they want to live in. And so they're gonna end the day. So it's a full day. We're excited. We need you to RSVP. If you have not RSVP'd, we would like you to. I have one issue that's come up today, which is the fact that we've got RSVPs, but this year we're charging for lunch, and so far we have only like 42. So it would be our recommendation, because you don't want to have 40 people or 50 people sitting around
Eating in front of others.
that we refund their money, and as our birthday celebration, just make this free like we have every other year. This was our first year ever to charge. So if that's okay with everybody, I think we will probably just
Like $10 or something?
$15.
15.
Yes.
Very
So
much.
Have you sent an email blast about RSVPing and not signing up for lunch and stuff?
yes,
Yes, we
yes,
have.
yeah, a couple
I
of
don't
blasts. I
miss
think.
Every time we send out a blast, there's an uptick in RSVP.
Right,
right.
But it seems like not lunch.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if that's okay with everybody, we're just gonna
We're gonna make that happen.
make another
Where's the money coming from for that?
we have sponsorships. And so we already have 50.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the lunch.
For the lunch,
From the sponsorships, I checked already, we have over $58,000 in
Yeah.
sponsorships right now.
Yeah.
So it's a fundraiser for us, but you know, so, and we usually pay for lunches out of that.
yeah.
and the lunch purchase was so we always have a lot of drop off of RSVPs versus show ups. And so we were trying to like
Cut
get people to
waste.
be more attentive to their RSVPs and
RSVPs.
showing up. And we've had people that have RSVP'd and can't show up anymore and have asked if a colleague can replace them and get their lunch transferred. So I think that part of it has worked, but overall, there's a third of people. or
We'll just
something
do
like
this
that.
every year and then we'll switch it at the end, so we'll get a good RSVP
Well,
number.
It's like, one year we had over 500 RSVPs and only 400 people came.
Yeah.
So we're buying, you know, it's just.
You
crazy.
buy for the entire amount that
We buy
RSVP?
a little.
Well,
less
we,
here,
no,
a
we
little
go
less.
under.
Okay.
But
But even that year, I think we came in like 75 less than, but we would never have known. I think it was even less than,
Yeah.
more than 100 didn't
Right,
show up.
It didn't show up.
Yeah, and then we do get walk-ins, but the difference is, it's.
What's the lunch fee?
15.
It's like $15.
Should we drop it to 10? Just,
I don't know that the fee is,
Yeah.
it did, nobody's complained about the dollar amount of the fee. I just don't know that if it's preventing people from
signing up.
signing
Yeah,
up. or
well,
something.
and then maybe they won't stay for lunch and then they're gonna miss the afternoon and so I think that it's a deterrent and we have to give everybody armbands to say that they paid for lunch. I mean, it's more work
The
for us
caterer's
and the
not-
caterer.
Yeah, the caterer's
If we
not
charge for
charging
lunch.
Yeah. We have to have staff be police standing at the
And so that nobody
buffet,
takes
so
the
they
lunch.
don't take the lunch. They're not
Well,
switching.
the only
They're
thing
doing
is, last year I saw people, and let me see, they were planning ahead, because they would come with multiple plates and they would have them covered with other plates. It was like they were coming in, oh, I guess, let's take a haul. I mean, you know,
Take up,
Very hungry.
yeah. And I mean, I'm like, okay, and I don't know if they were really listening, but they were eating.
Yeah.
well, we're gonna
No, I mean, if it's like $5, I mean, that's some mitigation, but if anyone can't make it to lunch, they won't really begrudge the $5, you know, it's a donation to the cause, right?
No,
Okay,
it's so, well, it could be a suggesting you lower the fee, but
Yeah, I don't think that gets
Just
you where
buy
you need
lunch.
to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say, just forget about it, because since you've been doing that for 25 years.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, so we're just gonna, give us another maybe
Yeah.
city push and.
We'll only buy half the food, David.
just cut back down.
So
Yeah.
make sure you get in line
One
first.
serving.
There might not be any food left for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so please RSVP and please plan to attend because it's going to be a fun event. And the staff is really working super hard and it should be, what we're also working on is micro mobility. There's a company that actually wants to give electric bike rides they have a whole thing. And so we don't know if the city of Carson is going to allow it. We're waiting on them. And if they allow it, we'll have a little bit of a ride and drive track. That's it for the General Assembly.
SBCC projects.
That's you, Kim.
You ready for me?
Yep.
So first of all, I wanted to let you know that we have secured 2 more years, actually it's 2.5 years of funding from our SoCal Gas partner to help promote their energy efficiency programs, both to residents and businesses and also for public agencies. And so that's very exciting. That amount is $105,000 each year for 2026 and 2027, and then their contract ends like in a weird time this calendar year, and so they're giving us an additional 40,000 in the calendar year. You'll see that in the next budget that'll come to you guys in the spring, and then that would start July 1. So that's great. We've got additional like 2.5 years, almost 3 years of funding. I think that's going to continue. Also, we had a great meeting with your facility staff, where we had an energy management working group. We also had climate staff from the cities attend. We had 9 cities, different cities represented. So we had like 22 people in this room. And then we had the utilities come, and we also had school districts come for the first time. And the school districts were so excited. They were just taking notes about all the different programs and things that they could take advantage of. One of the things that's coming back this year is the heat pump water heater, and that's where they're an exchange program to switch out gas powered hot water heaters with electric powered hot water heaters. And it's a great incentive. We had a lot of cities taking advantage of it. I think almost every city that's in the room here. I know Rolling Hills is actually maybe looking at it. And they take like, and it covers, it covers like 100% for certain communities. It covers 100% of the cost and installation. And I know it's fantastic. For some other communities, it gets to 80%. So it's really a great savings. They also have a preferred contractor to make it really easy for cities. They have a preferred contractor that's gone through a public bidding process, and they can provide the city staff with that process and that language to put into like your council items, for example. So you don't have to even go out to bid, but you could use your own staff to do the installation as well. And I was talking to your staff about it.
That's not gonna happen. Yeah, we don't have staff to do that.
I know. So
Very limited.
yeah, but they have a contractor that would come in and would do the work.
Got it.
Yeah, which is nice. Then
So
city
is
staff doesn't have to
this
do it.
apply now, or is that something coming in the future?
Yeah, no, so we just got this information, and it'll be good between now and the end of the year. So we want to make sure. And of course, everything is limited. So first come, first serve. So we want to make sure all of our agencies get it first, right? So that I wanted to let you know about. Also, we had a really good meeting actually with the city of El Segundo staff. We have, for the new council members here, we have a program where we go in and look at everything in your buildings that uses energy. So it's called a facility equipment inventory. And then we create this big list, and then we take that list and we give it to technical consultants that work through the SoCal REN, and then they try to match up, they try to first identify improvements that need to be done, and then match it up to like incentive programs or other kinds of opportunities. So with the city of El Segundo, I know that you guys are looking at lighting. And we had Greg Stevens, which is an energy engineer who used to work for the COG under contract, do that work. And the potential there for your city hall complex is fantastic. Like the payback is like a 3-year period. And then I think the project is like, it's under 200,000 and you would save like 33,000 a year or something. It's like an amazing project. So we're hoping that you guys will be able to go forward with that. But those kinds of opportunities is what we're looking for actually for all the cities and the school districts too. We've been working with them as well. So that's really all I have right now. If there's any questions on those projects.
Are you sending out information on that
Yes, yes.
tomorrow?
And you did have, yes, I can do that. And Christian Horbach was at the meeting and he received it directly.
Okay.
But yeah.
Did you got Weisburn School District to be involved?
So they did reach out to us. So our goal is to get every agency enrolled in what we call the SoCal REN, which is these incentive programs, because agencies can't take advantage of all these programs unless they're enrolled in that. And we have 3 school districts that are outstanding, and we talk to them, but they have to go through their board. And that sometimes slows it down a little bit, but we're able to meet with them. So my goal is by the end of the year to make sure we get them in. Also working with Lawndale School District, and I can't remember the third one right now off the top of my head, but yeah. Any help? At least we got the meeting. Maybe you can help us get to the school.
Yeah, I know some school board members. So
Okay,
I'll give them.
great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We already did homeless services. There really isn't much more to say about that. And on senior services, there is a grant that we're hoping to put in, it's only $25,000, it's a small grant, that from AARP, that we've been talking to each of these health district and the Area G disaster preparedness to do something about preparedness for seniors. And a bulk of this grant would be used to buy senior emergency preparedness kits. Not exactly sure what that is, but it is something. So we're doing that. We're going to be submitting that grant. The deadline is next week. So we're going to try that.
We'll always take 3 minutes.
Right. And then on the South Bay Fiber Network, the new owner is, for those of you that haven't heard this, the South Bay Fiber Network is being sold to a new owner, RSG Telecom. The new owner is very invested in buying the South Bay Fiber Network. They've already met with over 11 of the cities and your staff to talk about your needs and where you are with fiber, what you're looking for. They want to expand. They're getting loans. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They have not signed the deal yet, the purchase agreement, and we must make the final approval. The COG, the board of directors, must approve of the final purchase. So it was supposed to come to a previous meeting. We still do not have it yet. We have a lot of good intentions and I'm positive it's coming, but there's an awful lot of pieces to put together. So in the meantime, like I said, they're meeting, they come to our office and we've had brainstorming meetings about how we're going to expand the fiber network. We're moving forward, but it's not official. And we're going to have to bring it back to you. In the meantime, on March 19th, there is something called the 88 Cities Summit by LA Deal, I think. And it's going to be in Torrance, Nakano Theater, I think. And it's like from 8 to 4. And it's going to be about fiber digital equity. And we have a panel that we're going to be on. I'm going to be the moderator, Wally Simbab, our research director on the panel, along with Mark Henderson from Gardena, who was an IT director in his private sector job.
Your life.
Yeah, in his real life. And then our new representatives from our new ownership will also be on that panel to talk about some of the things that we're planning for the future. So please, it should be a really interesting meeting, and it is 4 cities. So and I am a little bit appalled that there is nothing I can hand you. Today I got something that an email that I think is the beginning of their social media campaign. I think it's starting to come out. The invitation is starting to come out. But I have no other details, and we'll be sending them out as soon as we have details. So that's where we are on fiber. Transportation. Mike Balky is here. Mike, you want to tell us about the Metro meeting today? Is he?
Andy.
Oh, Andy. I'm sorry, Andy.
Yeah, Mike is.
I don't know if Mike's there. Yeah.
Dinner time.
Mike and I were talking earlier. He was going to give a board update, and I was going to do that.
Well, why don't you start and maybe he'll hear your voice.
I'll just give an update.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'm having trouble trying to, well, I'll just go unseen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There wasn't all that much on the board agenda today. It was a short agenda, but 2 salient issues I thought you would be interested in. was the Han motion for the continuation of the weapons detection pilot and the staff recommendation to proceed with phase 2 of the Fairgate retrofit for gated stations with taller gates. The Han motion calls for using the pillar detection type technology. There were 2 types of technology that were being tested. One was a 2-lane exit and entrance that was more cumbersome and difficult to move around, and the pillar type are just a passenger walks through the detection system, and it uses advanced sensors, AI, and other technologies to detect concealed weapons without requiring passengers to stop and remove any belongings. The pillar type system demonstrated advantages in flexibility, portability, and reduced infrastructure requirements. However, the pilot also revealed a high rate of false positives, which required Metro to position additional security personnel for secondary screening to minimize delays for the riders. Staff also tested brandished firearm detection through video analytics and identified a system that could integrate with Metro's existing security infrastructure once it's upgraded to digital system. Now, right now, this pilot is being aimed for the rail stations, but Mayor Butts has been advocating the micrometer system that could be employed on the buses. And so staff is continuing to look at that. But they plan on being able to fit these detectors on as many stations ultimately as physically will be able to take them. But the pillars add that advantage that they're portable and are light and can be moved around quickly. Then related to this is that Metro is expanding the use of taller gates for our stations. The current turnstile and leaf fare gates are highly susceptible to fare evasion, whereas the taller gates, which really are about 6 feet tall, directly improve the passenger safety and security. They have features such as precise motion sensors that can accurately detect fare evasion behaviors, such as tailgating, trying to 2 people move in at once, crawling under or climbing over, as well as electromechanical locks to prevent forced entries. Director Najarian said he hurt his shoulder trying to prove that you couldn't use it for forced entry. The paddle style doors that improve accessibility for customers with bicycles and luggages and other items. The taller fare gates also have large color coded displays to alert authorized personnel of fare evasion attempts. These gates offer potential integration with third-party advanced security solutions, such as enhanced camera detection for weapons or other threats. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Andy to update you on South Bay projects.
Anything for Mike? No? Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Andy.
Sure, just a few more agency updates. So Metro now has had a 26 months in a row of ridership increases. In 2024, we had 242 million bus boardings, 68 million train boardings throughout the year. So we're not quite at the pre-pandemic levels, but gone up and up and up in the last 26 months. We also are the only transit agency now in the nation to fully enclose our bus barriers. So the bus operators, they used to have a little bit of an open area on the bus, and now it's fully enclosed. It's the only agency in the nation that has that, so we're really proud about that. Crime is also down 15.5%, 2024, 2023 on the metro system. Kind of more specific updates to the South Bay. So on Monday, Metro started a bus lane enforcement system on the 720 Wilshire and 212 La Brea. I think the La Brea one goes into Inglewood. So if you are driving in that bus lane, there are cameras there, and there was a 60-day warning period that's now expired. You'll get a ticket for $293 in the bus lane as part of that enforcement. And starting on Monday, the 60-day warning period will start for the J line on the 110. So if you're driving in the express lane for the buses on the 110, you'll get a letter saying, hey, you're in express lane, you can't do that. And 60 days from March 3rd, barring anything else, the fines will kick in. So Metro is doing this to really get scofflaws out of the lanes and really increase the speed of the buses going on those dedicated bus lanes. This is a new project that will start and for the South Bay there. For the sea line extension, so we've been doing field work. All the drone work has been completed. The traffic counts are done as well. But we have staff that's out in the right of way doing surveying work, and they'll be out there next week as well. And there's no update on the FEIR, which everyone's, I know, really anticipating it'll be in the second half of this year. The I-105 construction, we started doing the express lanes. I think most people are familiar with the project. We're converting the HOV lane to 2 express lanes from El Segundo to Central Avenue. So we are actually starting to do lane closures now at night. So actually tonight will be closed. Actually, yeah, tonight will be closed from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Parts of those lanes. And there'll be closures in the month of March, mostly during the week and all at the wee hours of the night. We actually had a meeting with Hollywood Park and SoFi Stadium this week, and we heard their concerns about not having certain ramps, especially the Crenshaw and the Prairie ramps have that. So after game nights. So we're working with them on that schedule as well. And those are really the big updates for the South Bay. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Go ahead.
You said Wilshire Boulevard, there's express lane, bus lanes. Are they also automatically citing? And where is that? Is that Westwood or is that?
It's on the 720 Wilshire line, which I'm not with the exact parameters of the line. It's
It goes to Santa Monica.
yeah.
Okay, but when somebody's gonna make a right turn, they have to go over to the far right lane. That would not be considered driving the bus lane?
I don't believe so. I think if you're in there for
period of time.
I think it's just because people who are like driving
the whole way, okay. And then enclosing the drivers, I mean, if I was a driver on a Metro bus, I would want to be enclosed. Doesn't that send the message that it's dangerous?
Well, there have been assaults on drivers, and this is something to, protect our workforce. That's one of our biggest things is workforce safety. And so it's there to protect everybody, especially our operators.
Okay.
We do it in Gardena also. We have.
Oh, really?
Right?
Like a pilot on an airplane, right?
Yeah.
Real quick question. I don't understand why this graduated rollout. As opposed to saying effective 30 days from now, we're going to enforce what is currently the law, where you can't park or drive in the bike lane. But this whole, okay, we really mean it now. I'm at a loss. It's like a 4-month rollout on enforcing what is currently the law.
Right. Yeah, I think they just wanted to
can do
put the hammer down on the public right away. I mean, you're right, it is the law.
It's the law. It's right now, it's a designated bike lane, but people park there with impunity. They drive there with impunity. And for years, we've done nothing. And now all of a sudden, we really mean it, but we're giving them 6 months to.
I mean, I would just say that, gradually speaking, the agency, they don't like to just boom,
That's why we don't get crap done. Do it and move on to the next project. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Can I interject? I'm sorry.
Help me understand, Mike, because they don't understand it.
I just want to say it's not your fault that you're cursed with common sense.
Thank you.
Because it's automated tickets.
Yeah.
Aren't expecting it to be.
Well, are they giving people an option to go to court to beef it or not?
And I imagine you can appeal a ticket like any other.
Because if they are,
then it's
I mean,
I mean, to
if they
Zane's
are,
point,
then they have the point of, we gave you a warning and look, you did it again, so.
I mean, the J line, I think, is harder to justify, right? Like, that's clearly for buses. There's no justification for being in the lane on the.
Well, it's just like no parking. It says no parking and people are parking. It's clearly not, oh, I'm just in for a minute, like the Amazon trucks and everything. We just,
I think they're from Hermosa Beach, going to the beach, you know, they parked wherever.
my God.
Okay, micromobility.
Before we do that, I skipped transportation report. Is there anything we need to talk about?
Transportation committee. No, we're gonna have in our March meeting a presentation by it's called Glide Rail. It's autonomous rail to road to rail technology in the preliminary stages, but we help address goods movement, that sort of stuff. 710 issue that's not addressed by Metro. And so it'll be an interesting, I think, presentation to a transportation committee in March.
March 10th. And if anybody can come to the transportation committee, it's at 10:30 before the steering committee. And I learned some things from Metro. It's getting, I won't do this, but there's some really crazy things that Metro is requiring, I guess, well, I'll just give a heads up. We were discussing with one of our, and I'll discuss this at the transportation committee, discussing with one of our representatives that the South Bay Curve, which is a project that we wanted for a really, really long time, improvements to the South Bay Curve for safety and everything. That's $130 million project. We were gonna put up like 30 million, I think, as a local match, because it's a regional project. We shouldn't have to pay for it, but it is in the South Bay, so we have sort of allocated $30 million. But we just found out recently that there's nobody else that's going to put up any money, so they've come to us for the 130 million. So okay, so even if you want to get, so let's say we want to give the 130 million. Well, wait, there's more. If we put the money up, we're responsible for all the cost overruns. If we put the money up, we're responsible for, remember, this is on the right of the Caltrans freeway. We're responsible to pay Caltrans to manage the construction. Caltrans has estimated their cost to be $40 million. And so.
It's a benefit a state highway.
Yes, we have to pay them $40 million for a regional highway or a state highway. Anyway, and so they were asking, so what does the COG want to do? And I didn't want to speak for you, but I said there is no way in hell this particular project or any freeway project at this point, because that's an untenable situation. I went to my colleagues yesterday, all the other executive directors, and I said, have you heard of such a thing? And some of them are actually doing it. And San Gabriel Valley said that Caltrans is 3 years behind. They're way over budget and they're responsible for it. And I mean, to me, this requires a meeting at the governor's office. I mean, this is the craziest thing I ever heard. It's mind blowing. And so I thought we'd discuss it at the transportation committee a little too. But those are the kinds of things that are going on that I think are just, it's unbelievable as far as I'm concerned.
So you're saying we should have funded the ITC?
Now, that's not what I'm saying.
You'll see on our measure F,
Just kidding, guys.
there's a ton of money that was.
Just
requested.
kidding.
Yeah, and we also we've gotten a lot of, and that money was for these kinds of projects that we're gonna fund. It is not to fix the state highway system. So anyway, I'm just a little bit, besides this and Measure A, it's been a real week of, I want to fight.
Well,
the last thing I want to say about transportation is on the street right now for the consulting community is a RFP for Caltrans to the Sea, which is a project to do the local travel network and how to figure out how to connect it between Carson and Wilmington. So we would bring the local travel network to the sea. It isn't contiguous that we can do it in small streets. So we want a consultant to figure out what streets you would need to work on and put improvements into. Also, we've worked with Gardena this month on route refinement to start bringing the local travel network to Gardena, and we're working with their staff. And we have other cities that we're working with as well. So Carson, so LTN is moving forward. On the REAP 2.2, those are SCAG grants that we get. They're funded by HCD, and we are supposed to be looking at ways to create more housing in the South Bay. We have one which is commercial redevelopment to housing. 3 cities have signed up to participate in this grant, Carson, Hawthorne, and Torrance. And so we're going to be, an RFP is being prepared and it's almost ready to go out. We have another grant on mobility hubs to look at how we can create mobility hubs in the South Bay that would encourage people to take transit, I guess, and live in housing. And that RFP is being prepared. And then I just sent an email out on the Housing Trust Feasibility Fund study. There is a advisory committee and we're selecting a date in March, and for people, if you're interested in that, we've already have an advisory committee, but I think the meetings will probably be open. If you want to zoom in, we can let you know when that is. So that's where we are with all of our grants and studies. So next would be, David, do you want to tell us about office space?
Sure. So we're still in the process of discussing it with the our real estate representative and the 2 offices. Do you want me to mention the newest?
Yes.
Development? Okay, so there's an additional space below the one at Van Ness that we looked at earlier this week, that we were thinking of looking at the feasibility of taking that as well as the initial space we've been discussing last several months. The benefit of that one is that there's a large open space that lends itself well to a boardroom to begin with, that would actually give us more board space than the current design we have for the initial space. It also has like storefront access, so you don't have to wander through the building to get to the office. It has access from the parking lot. And so we're gonna see with the landlord, or with that landlord and our real estate agent, what kind of deal we can get with combining the 2 spaces. It'll be ultimately probably about double what we have here, and give us a lot of breathing room as we get these new grants and bring staff on, sublease opportunities to some of our partners that use the space. So we'll hopefully have something for you, an update next month, but I think we're looking at hopefully having whatever lease agreement in April so that we can get things started with the construction at the new.
There is no board meeting in March.
Okay. So it's steering.
That's the General Assembly. So the steering committee will hear any updates, and then anything would happen in April. Legislative briefing, I think it's just reminding you that you have to go home, shower, and get up tomorrow morning for 8 o'clock, where we're all meeting in the Cotto Theater for the meet and greet with the legislators.
12 hours from now.
Yeah.
By the time you get home, the 8.
So we hope you'll come. I can't remember which legislators. David, do you remember which legislators? It's Ben Allen.
It's so Gibson had to cancel yesterday. The Supervisor Hahn, Senator Allen, Assembly Member McKinner, and Mersucci.
So it's 4. Okay. And then on the opportunity to serve, there's a SCAG seat open for Carson, Lomita, and Lawrence, I think. And that one is going to close tomorrow. And we do have a candidate for that seat. And then there's several other positions. SCAG policy committees, if you're interested in it, Metro Service Council, and I think the Santa Monica Bay Restoration alternate. So I will send out a reminder of representatives that we send to other agencies that we appoint. And those appointments will be made at the April steering committee, April board meeting. And I think with that, there's no other news.
Oh, boy. I have a couple of things. Agency reports. So everybody knows what report that is due to Natalie every month. Just a few like the League of California, AQMD, SCAG, County Department of Public Health, Metro, South Bay Aerospace, Area G, South Bay Workforce, Baldwin Hills Urban Watershed, Santa Monica Bay Restoration, South Bay Association of Chambers, and California Association of Council of Governments. So, Natalie tries to put it out every month about getting your report in. So, just do us a favor and try not to forget. Even if there's no report, just tell her no report. But it's something that she needs to have for her records so that, she can stay up to date. So if you remember, I have a list of those that missed out this last one, that notes. I'm not gonna throw you under the bus, because you all know who you are, so just try to do that for Natalie. The second thing is, hopefully you all got a message from us about Jackie's eval. And please, don't wait to do it. Do it now so that we can get it in. What is the drop that date?
So in her contract, it's May 31st. We had set a deadline of March 5th, I think it was. Obviously there's plenty of wiggle room there.
Yeah.
So I can send out a reminder with the link again to everybody. It's a Survey Monkey survey, so just do it on your computer, laptop, or whatever. And then the chair will go through it, report out, whichever steering committee.
Okay, so yeah, just try to get that done so we don't have to kind of like drag it in and wait. I'm almost done with mine, so as old as I am, you guys can do it too. Okay. So with that, any announcements or anybody have anything to say?
Just wanted to remind people, normally the LA County Division for the League is somewhere far off, but next week on March 6th, it's actually in Torrance. And they're going to be having information from Southern California Edison, what they're doing in the recovery effort from fires. So anybody who's concerned about their utility causing fires in their community should be there. And also the Department of Insurance is going to be, representative is going to be talking about fire recovery and what they do. So it'll be interesting. And it's at the Southern California Edison plant or facility in Torrance, which I just Googled and found out that it's 505 Maple Avenue, but you should have something in your email box about it. But that's Thursday, the 6th, 6 to 8:30 p.m.
I'll be there. Yes.
Applications are open in LA County for the Measure G task force. So as you noted, lots of changes coming in LA County, and they're looking to have local leadership throughout the county start a task force to start advise that process and what you want to see locally. So just spreading the word about that. I hear a very hefty application. So might take some time if you're interested, but please check it out or spread the word if you know anybody it might be.
Well, how is it available? Like, where did you?
Oh, it's on, you can find it on the LA County's website. I'm pretty sure the CEO, you can definitely find it on Supervisor Mitchell's website, or you can email me, or I can email it to Jackie if she wants to share it out.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else? Hearing none? We're done.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Don't know yet, obviously.
I think I'm gonna go home and work.
Probably Jim.
This is just, a dinner break.
Yeah, that I know. Well, you're just, don't work too hard. Yes, come on.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing the morning.